Hello, my name is Barbara Chamberlin and I am a senior lecturer at the University of Brighton in the School of Humanities and Social Science. And I'm here today to talk to you for a little while about one of my most favourite things, which is, you've guessed it, comics. And I'm very much hoping that there are other comics readers out there today. So I've just got a few slides, a few images to show you, and I will then get to the purpose of what it is that I'm talking to you about and what I would like to invite you to. So if we start off by looking at 4 book covers here, and I wonder if any of you know what these have in common. So we've got Raymond Briggs's The Snowman, which some of you are probably more familiar with the cartoon that is often played around Christmas. We've got Rumble Strip, which is a sort of searing critique of car culture and road culture. Really quite fascinating, but not what you expect necessarily a comic to be. We've got a rather unsettling horror graphic novel by Hannah Berry, who was actually the, not currently, but the previous comics laureate. And then we have the beautiful graphic novel, The Encyclopedia of Early Earth by a woman called Isabel Greenberg. And all of these creators were all once students at the University of Brighton and have all gone on to create some amazing works over the course of their careers. Now, comics are wonderful for a range of reasons, and I could happily talk for a really long time about it, but I'm going to keep it short, so don't worry. And one of the things that I get people sort of saying to me, particularly as a mother, is that, oh, you know, why comics, they're not good for reading. They can limit your literacy, and that is so untrue. There's so much evidence to say that actually comics are an incredibly complex way of telling stories and reading stories, and can actually really help with literacy. And I chose this example for a couple of reasons. First of all, because of precisely this, that when my son, when he was in primary school, he was a very reluctant reader. He could read, but he couldn't really be bothered until he read this series, Bone, by Jeff Smith. And from this went on to reading all sorts of other things. So this was very much his gateway. So I think of this comic as being an incredibly important aspect of my son's educational development. Also, Jeff Smith has said that his main character, Bone, who you can see on many of those covers there, is actually based on a doodle that he used to do when he was a kid. And maybe all of us at some point draw doodles. Mine tend to be snails for some reason, but draw doodles. But what he did is he extended it, and it became an incredibly well-received comic and very successful comic book series. And I had to include this page here because I love the way that the comic in 2 panels can take us from a summer's day, and with one whoomp of snow change it completely into the middle of winter. And I think that comics can do that in a really good way. So yeah, comics open up these fantastical and amazing worlds. Other narrative forms do as well, but comics do that in quite special ways. Well, a lot of us will be familiar with comics as a result of the way that comics are being adapted into the incredibly successful Marvel Studios films and TV series. So this is where comics very much kind of sit at the heart of adaptation and transmedia, where we have them being the narratives and the characters and the universes that offer lots of different ways of adapting these stories. It's not just the Marvel if you think of the other big comics publisher, DC, that are sort of at the heart of adaptations like this. If we look across this series here, this is a sample of recent comic series that have been adapted into fairly successful TV series, with in particular The Walking Dead, which is one, I can't remember how many series we're on that now. Many of these are on Netflix, many of these are sort of more within the horror vein, which is my favourite. But they all offer amazing and interesting worlds. However, comics can also very much reflect the real world as well. They don't have to create the fantastical or the other world. They can very much give us very deep and important insights into the world that we are in. A fantastic example of this is this graphic novel here called The Photographer, which is a collaborative work about experiences of working with Doctors Without Borders or Médecins Sans Frontières in war-torn Afghanistan. And as we can see from the couple of sample pages here, what we have is photographs that were taken during this experience embedded into that sort of comics narrative. So we've got a multimodal way of telling stories here. So it's not just drawn pictures, it's also photographed ones as well. I wanted to include this one because I read this book recently. It came out this year, The Roles We Play, by a woman called Saba Khan. And it's just a really interesting, really meaningful way of Saba Khan exploring the ways that she came to understand her own identities and her own upbringing. And it's a really important and really beautiful example of graphic memoir. Now, when we think about comics and graphic novels, we often think of incredible artwork, and many of them do. And there are so many others that I could have chosen to illustrate just this. But it's not always that they have to do so. Close Your Eyes, Look at the Mountains by Jean Abernathy is a webcomic. It was introduced to me by a student a few years ago. These are very simply, naively drawn characters. There's not the detail and the colouring and the penciling and the inking that's going on with other works. But there's something incredibly simple about this, and it's that simplicity that carries its power and that has also generated such a strong fan base for this particular webcomic. So why am I telling you all this? Well, I would like to invite any of you who are interested to a series of workshops that will help you make a comic. So these sessions, there'll be 4 of them in total, and they'll help you sort of plan a short story, look at how to present it in comics form, how to design memorable characters and to lay your work out in interesting ways, and to ultimately build up to a finished comic at the end. So, if you have an interest in comics, you like working creatively, you've got lots of enthusiasm, you're able to attend all the sessions, they're down there, and your teachers will have this information as well, and you're quite happy to get stuck in, we would really love to see you there, and I very much hope that you can come exploring with us. And in addition, all of the comics that you create, that will be published in an anthology at the end, and the originals will be displayed at the Graphic Brighton Comics event in May, and all of you will be invited to come along with your families to see the amazing work that you've produced. So if you're interested, we'd love to see you there. Take care.